Canadian traveler recently left this public comment on TripAdvisor, and I quote, "Just got back from a trip to Nevada, flying out of Buffalo, and I'm from Ontario. The airport is a dream, no lineups, quick through TSA checkpoints. The airport is super clean." He also added, "It was a quick drive over to the airport, no COVID testing required. Crossing across the U.S. border is easy. They only ask if you're vaccinated and do not ask to see your test. I have crossed 3 times in the past 2 months. Same thing every time. Coming back across the border at the Rainbow Bridge, there were about 10 cars in front of us, and it took forever to get to a booth. So anyone thinking of ditching Pearson Airport and traveling down to Buffalo, do it. It's worth it." Minister, Niagara Falls is the #1 tourism leisure destination in all of Canada. Yet every taxpayer dollar that Destination Canada spends in international markets, including our prime market, the United States, for our border communities, is being wasted by headlines that continually hit the press talking about Pearson Airport being the worst airport in the world. My colleague has just mentioned this. 60 countries around the world have abandoned all air travel pandemic restrictions, including most of our European allies. So why does this government continue to cling to these restrictions, which only do a disservice and disincentivize travel to this country?
Good question.
Mr. Chair, it helps no one to undermine confidence in our aviation sector and in our institution. I acknowledge the fact that in Canadian airports and airlines, we've witnessed and continue to witness some congestion similar to what we're seeing around the world, including in the United States. I also acknowledge that we have currently the only public health measures at our borders is requiring proof of vaccination, by the way, just like the US and many countries around the world. And work is being done on a daily basis to address these congestion issues, and the evidence proves that things are getting better. More work is needed, but things are getting better. I want to ask my honorable colleague if he really cares about the fluidity of our borders. Why did he and his colleagues support these blockaders who blocked our borders, for weeks, prevented Canadians and others from...
Minister, the question period is to me now. And if you had done your job, Minister, and spoken to stakeholders, including the federally bridge that you regulate in Fort Erie, the Fort Erie Peace Bridge Authority, you appoint members of that commission. They can tell you about the border delays, about traffic being down 50%, Minister, yet wait times are up almost over 2 hours, and yet you've done nothing. Minister, you have a hard time responding to correspondence from them, and your commission that you regulate. So why are you continuing to put disincentives to travel to this country? 40,000 people in my community work in the tourism sector, and they're being impacted. And we've lost 2 tourism years because of COVID. This year, if we lose it, it's self-inflicted, and there's nobody to blame but this Liberal government. When are you going to take actions? Who told you, Minister, that ArriveCan is not having any impact on wait times?
Mr. Chair, setting aside the bluster there, we continue to do everything we can to protect the health and safety of Canadians and facilitating smooth border crossing for all travelers. And we have had all hands on deck, whether it is at airports or land borders. My colleagues and I have been working with border communities to ensure that they have the tools they need to facilitate safe and efficient border crossing. Mr. Chair, the public health measures that we have.
Who have you spoken to, Minister? Have you spoken to the stakeholders? Have you spoken to the bridge commissions? Have you spoken to the tourism stakeholders? My understanding is the Liberal caucus was meeting recently in Niagara Falls, the Ontario caucus. Did they meet with any stakeholders to hear from them directly about the impact that it's having on my community? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I know my colleague Vance Badaway is here, a member of the committee, who's been a proud and a vocal advocate on behalf of the Niagara region, who has been a champion for the Great Lakes, who've been a champion for the communities, who have been working...
Then why aren't you listening to them?
Collaboratively with our ministers, who've been working collaboratively with stakeholders. I have met with stakeholders. I've met with experts in tourism, and we will continue to do
10 more seconds, please, Minister.
To ensure.
Why does it take you months to respond to your own government agency that reports to you?
a safe and efficient travel. It's unfortunate that the Conservatives never taken COVID seriously. It's unfortunate that the Conservatives supported these illegal blockades that blocked our borders and had a massive impact on border communities, have not apologized for it to this day. But we, on the other hand, Mr. Chair, are focused.
Minister, they're going to hold a parade in Buffalo for you.
Thank you very much,
Their
Mr.
Chamber of Commerce
Baldinelli.
is going to hold a parade for you.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Vanette, one of the main issues plaguing our airports not only is ArriveCAN, but we're also hearing about a severe shortage in staffing with regards to CBSA officers, not only at our airports, but our land border points of entry. So, Mr. Vanette, what does CBSA need to do to achieve its full staffing complement in Canada? How many officers are we short?
So the CBSA plans every year for its seasonal fluctuations in traffic in the various modes, land and airports, and through the cruise ship season, and aligns its resources and moves them accordingly. In support of the air transportation sector, we hire student border services officers every year, and they come on strength after their school year ends in April, and they help us, and we retain some of them through the balance of the year so that they're ready to be on site the following year. So they supplement our workforce. In terms of the overall workforce, unlike other sectors, we have had individuals who, as a result of COVID and other measures, have been unable to attend to the workplace, and we've respected that and we've worked with them, and they've continued to contribute to our border services by supporting the front line through other venues and other programs to ensure that we could sustain the capacity. So we continue to advance the staffing, and I'm pleased to report that we've actually doubled our recruitment target for the next 2 years in order to offset the loss of some officers as a result of the COVID restrictions that may have been affecting them and their ability to return to the workplace.
Well, thank you for that. I was just checking the CBSA employment page earlier before coming over, and it said that there was a COVID notice, and it said due to the impacts of COVID-19, we are experiencing unforeseen delays with some aspects of the selection process. In speaking with several stakeholder groups, they had heard that the CBSA training session was closed during COVID, and maybe that's possibly why the shortages and the backlog of officers needed. I'm wondering if you can confirm that. Was that training center in fact closed for a period of time? Did that add to the backlog? And why are we still experiencing unforeseen delays with some aspects of the selection process?
And so the CBSA did shutter its national college for recruitment in Rigaud, Quebec for, I believe it was 2 cycles. I would have to confirm that. And then when it was safe to do so, we reopened, and we actually had individuals report to the college. They would quarantine for the 14 days before we began classes. Visitors were kept from entering the location to ensure that we could keep the college as sterile as possible. So we are now back in full operation, and as I stated, we'll be doubling our recruitment in order to play.
Thank you. Now, in terms of that cohort, you had mentioned 2 cohorts. How many officers would that have been in total?
In a given year, we target about 275 to 300 new recruits, and therefore it could have been upwards of 600. And we are now back in full cycle, and we will complement our resourcing by doubling those cohorts for the next 2 years.
Now, was CBSA unable to operate? I mean, colleges, universities, even the Ontario Police College were operating in a virtual manner. Why was the training center not able to do the same?
The type of work that we undertake requires that our officers learn hands-on how to operate both the systems. They have to have access to those systems, how to inspect vehicles. They do use of force training throughout the entire curriculum. And so our training for officers is 20 weeks long. The first 4 are at residence online, and then the following 16 need to be in person, very similar to police training and recruitment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanette, when we last met in June, it was at International Trade Committee. I had asked you if you had the opportunity to visit Niagara Falls, again, which is the #1 leisure tourism destination in Canada. So with only 4 weeks left, I'm truly hoping you were able to do so. And is that the case?
I vacationed. My summer vacation was spent at Niagara-on-the-Lake and in Niagara Falls this summer. I have not visited my operations there at this time. I've been heavily focused on the airport operations, and it's been well in hand with our regional director general for the area, with whom I'm in touch on a daily basis, to ensure that we are being responsive to the demands in terms of individuals who are traveling through our land borders, which is now recovered to just above 60% of historical volumes.
Burnett, consider this your invitation again to come down. I'd love to have you down. Again, we've got 4 bridges in my riding alone, and 2 of those are in the top 4 commercial land crossings in all of Canada. So they're vitally important to us. So to ensure the efficient and effective flow of traffic, we would like to have you down. And in fact, speaking to those 2 bridge commissions, because in fact, we're finding bridge traffic down 50% pre-pandemic, but we're finding wait times that could be over 2 hours long in comparison to pre-pandemic times. So we need to find a better solution to those impacting the efficient flow of tourism and trade crossing those border points.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baldinelli. And